It's time you stop living in denial. It's time that you stop living in delusions. It's time that you stop entertaining imaginations that have no basis for you to believe or agree with, in fact, in reality. It's time for you to grow up. It's time for you to put the childish things away. It's time for you to put assumption away. It's time for you to put fear away. Fear was for when you did not know truth. Fear was before you tapped into love. Perfect love cast out fear. You can't harbor both. You can't be hateful and loving. You can't hate your neighbor and love your wife. It doesn't work like that. If you harbor hate, the hate infects you to the point that you are dysfunctional. You become split and divided in all of your ways. A double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. Your brain is whole. It's one piece, but it's divided so it can be labeled and it can be explained into two parts, four sections, and the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere are supposed to work together. Your left hemisphere, you're supposed to still, quiet, meditate, shut it up. Your reason, your logic, your understanding, your experiences, your memories, your fears. Yeah, shut all of that up, sit it still, and remember that I am is God. The right side of the brain, the gift of God. The right side is the creative side. So many words in the English language that just do not mean what we say they mean or what we think they mean, or we have applied them in ways that are not in alignment with their definition. Can I ask you a question? You can't stop me no way, so I'm gonna ask. Are you judgmental? Or do you use good judgment? I'll wait. Judgment is the ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. That's judgment. You look at other people and you believe that you have the ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions based on the calculation of their body language, their tone, and their actions all combined into one big assumption from you as to who they are, what their intention is, and whether you should connect with them or not to benefit your own selfish gains. The second definition for judgment is a misfortune or calamity viewed as a divine punishment. So this is the earthquake that God sent because California has gotten wicked. And this is the shooting in the alternative lifestyle club because God don't like the misidentification and misuse of that rainbow. This is how we think. Something bad happens to us. Something that we perceive as bad or unwanted happens to us after we've done something we perceive to be bad, and we say God's getting us back. Like you say that God is good, God is loving, but then in your head you hold this idea of this monstrous deity that sits pettily watching you, waiting for you to make a mistake, but never really speaking up when you do things right, because why should you be rewarded for doing things right? Well, if I can't be rewarded for doing things right, then why would I imagine myself to be punished for doing things wrong? So you mean to tell me that there's no reward for me doing the right thing? I go to school, I get my grades, I come home, I wash the dishes, I do what my mama say, and then I go in there with the expectation that she's willing to do something for me because of my partnership with her rules and me walking in alignment with things I've seen other people get in trouble for. And then she tells me, all you've done up to this point is what you're supposed to do. That's the thing. We have people who want control over people, people who want to take possession of you, but don't have any knowledge or experience when it comes to putting down the illusions and interacting with another person genuinely and transparently from a seat of love. And so the metaphysical definition of judgment is the mental act of evaluation through comparison and contrast. Mental act of evaluation through comparison and contrast. So this is me in my head looking, interpreting, misinterpreting the actions of another, applying my definitions to it, because my definitions all derive from my past experiences. So when I look over and see you doing something and I identify it without talking to you about what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what I did was reached into my reservoir, went into my past, and found a picture that looks like the picture that I'm looking at of you. And I've compared, I've contrasted, and I've come to a conclusion that I think is sensible, that this is ... And that's a whole lot of thinking, a whole lot of projecting, a whole lot of assuming, a whole lot of overthinking, a whole lot of talking to yourself. That's just a whole lot. And you could easily walk over to that person and inquire. You could ask a question. But you know, the real reason that most people don't just go over and ask people transparent questions, it's not even because as the questionnaire, they are insecure and don't know how to approach people. Half the time, that's not what it is. Most of the time, what you have is a person who is under the impression that people cannot be trusted. The things that come out of people's mouth are not equivalent to the things that they conjure up in their head. I know people will open their mouth and lie, so I'll go inside of myself because I haven't identified me as the biggest liar yet. I haven't identified my ego as the shifty, shaky, inconsistent falsehood that it is. So I think that I'm always telling myself the truth when I'm talking to me. And I think because I've been lied to before by someone else, that you're going to lie to me too. So rather than ask you and allow for you to bring clarity and understanding to the situation, I'll just perceive, compare, and contrast until I can come up with what it is that you're doing. But another definition for judgment is spiritual discernment. Another definition for judgment is the inner voice through whose expression we come into a larger realization of ourselves. So inside of this one word, inside of this one English term, you have the ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. You have a misfortune or calamity viewed by divine punishment. Those two definitions are worlds apart. One is taking place with an invisible deity who's elsewhere, who punishes you for doing wrong and may or may not reward you for doing right. The other one takes place inside of your psyche, where you believe that you have the ability to make calculated decisions and come to sensible conclusions. The metaphysical definition, the mental act takes place in your mind, is the evaluation through comparison and contrast. Spiritual discernment, now we've moved into the spirit realm, and the inner voice through whose expression we come into a larger realization of ourselves. So judgment can bring life or judgment can bring death, depending on what it is to you and what you do with it. So judgment is a faculty of the mind that can be used in two ways. It can be used based on sense perception or spiritual understanding. You've been listening to people judge you all your life. And because you've listened to these judgments, entertained these judgments, not only have you adopted idiocracies and fallacies that you apply to your own identity, you also have entertained and projected inconsistencies and judgments onto other people around you, because this is the way that you were taught to communicate and use your mind. Your mind has the ability to call forth anything that you give your attention to, whether it be something that you perceive as good or bad. The gift of life was literally deposited inside of you in an irrevocable way for you to use and for you to express the power of I am in you. And we will operate totally ignorant to these truths, and we will hunt down every opportunity to judge anyone, as we pretend that we never do. You do the good that you do in hopes that good is done for you, but you say that you're a good person who does good just because you want to. You say that you do the good because you want to, and you're not looking for anything in return. But when somebody doesn't give you the acknowledgement for the good that you've extended, you find yourselves talking about bridges burned. You say that it's a free will gift. It's all about love. You just want people to experience the same things that you did. But most of the things that you recall from your past were not good. They didn't feel well. So sometimes you get it in your head that you should be setting people straight. You should be teaching them a lesson. You should be showing them the error of their ways.